Hi, my name is Harleen Carr, curator at Virginia on Air, and we sat down with one of your representatives for a short interview. Let's take a look.
Well, again, I have to start with the fact that a woman in my generation, there just weren't opportunities. And my husband and I had been married in college, and by the way, we're still married. And so as I came out of college without the professional opportunities and knowing I wanted to be home as the children were growing up, I got extremely involved in citizen activities, particularly in the growth county of Fairfax County, as so many things were changing. So whether it was public schools or the environment, and I got more and more involved in tax policy. I'm a nerd, a numbers person at heart, so looking at budget, looking at economic development, and again, never expected that I would run for office. And I won't go into the full story, but the fact is that as opportunities opened for women, I fortunately, all of that citizen activity, it was very relevant. And I ran in a sacrificial lamb race. I survived it. I got enough of the vote that I realized that I would now have the opportunity to take all of that citizen awareness and be able to really be active in making a difference in public policy. Oh, my most significant accomplishment, survival. I say that because as I've just answered as far as my involvement, I have found that if you are totally involved in whatever you're doing, take every opportunity to learn, and to this day, if I am asked to go to whether it is Norfolk Grumman site or whether it is the home of a child who needs 24/7 care because of a birth defect, you learn something by being there. And that constant involvement has meant that one thing has evolved into another, has evolved into another. I was, in fact, Secretary of Transportation and Public Safety, a job that later was split and into two different jobs. But as Cabinet Secretary, that involvement in the criminal justice system that is normally not open to a regular citizen was incredibly important in looking at how criminal justice is carried out in all of our communities. And you can see as I've done all those threads, how many things keep on interweaving with each other, and you don't approach an issue in isolation. In 2020, the thing that I think I'm in the best position to do as the now chairman of the House Finance Committee, which is a tax writing committee, for almost a century, since the 1930s, we've had an artificial distinction between cities and counties, where cities are regarded as having the sophistication to manage their own financial affairs and having more demands on services, whereas counties were regarded as just primitive. And so with that, it means that that counties such as I represent with over 1 million people, as well as counties throughout Virginia, are limited to just the colonial tax base of property. That's it. And I would argue that that is the heaviest impact on low income of all of our taxes, because you have to live somewhere, and that real estate tax is going to be passed on through your rent, or if you're aging in place, you're living in the family home, your ability to pay and the value of that house is not connected. And so giving counties the same broader ability to raise revenue as cities have had for the last century, I think is an important part of, it's not just modernizing, but it's making sure that our tax system is fairer and in fact reaches out all of the people who are benefiting from services. Most importantly, again, relieving the real estate tax. I guess I'll take the question of what I'm asked most frequently to give you this answer. As I was knocking on doors running for re-election, in a friendly way, more than one person would say, "How long are you going to keep at this, Vivian?" And it's important to relate to my answer that I realized half dozen or so years ago when I was so frustrated one particular session and how it was going, what am I still doing here? How important it was that if I stayed up to date. And that's what anybody who's been in office for a while has to commit to stay up to date. And then all of the experience that I had, all the institutional memory that I have about how some of these issues have shaped and what our concerns are is extremely valuable. So that is the question that I most frequently ask, and I'm now very comfortable in saying, with especially the turnover that we've had in the House of Delegates, we have a lot of fresh voices, so I do think that people are well represented, but it's also important in that full discussion that someone such as myself continues to be involved. College affordability is an extremely serious problem. It's obviously a deep problem for each of the young adults who have sacrificed to get their education, but now as they're looking at their future, this is limited in many ways their choice of career and as well as personal choices of starting a family, all of these other things. But it's also a serious problem for our whole economy, that the growth in student debt is far greater than the growth in credit card debt, in mortgage debt. This is changing our entire economy. So we have to deal with it. And in dealing with it, it's going to be both on all ends of the spectrum. There needs to be reform and control over the way in which college debt is administered, so that if there have been commitments that if you serve as a teacher or other areas of public need, that there is a commitment from the lender who will honor that public policy decision that may have been made and that the student had depended on in their choice of majors and careers. But then we also have to look at the cost of college and making sure that we have gone from not too long ago, I'm going to say in my experience, 15 years or so ago, 20 years ago, the public contribution to a college education was over 50% for an in-state resident. And now the public dollars going in are less than a third. And instead, the tuition rates have gone up and up. And that kind of public commitment to the importance of higher education, we must restore that balance. But also, I am very committed to what we have been doing to be more realistic about offering a wide variety of relevant career choices that take more than a high school education, but not necessarily a four-year degree, and looking at the opportunities to fully utilize our community colleges so that we have good certificate degree programs leading to meaningful careers, but again at far less cost and a far more important career paths than some students have found coming out of a four-year degree. Vote, absolutely. I can't tell you how often I have tried to reach out to the full demographics, and unfortunately, when you look at the previous election, you do not have the voter participation that there needs to be in those who are in college and coming out of college. So often voter participation doesn't start until the mid-30s, and that is unfortunate. And it's also unfortunate because it is a lifetime habit. I love going door to door and seeing that voter record that they never miss an election, and it makes a difference. I guess I'm going to say just embrace life as I look as particularly your audience. It has been a marvelous journey for me, and I know that as I know what I have experienced, that each generation has that opportunity to embrace change, to bring your life experience into that change, and hopefully real progress, not only in all of that the human intelligence is able to produce in technological improvements, but also hopefully in justice. And as I say that, I must, however, acknowledge the failure of my generation to really deal with the ramifications of all that has been done on climate change. And we have got to deal with that issue. It should never have developed to the point that we currently are, and action should have been taken 20 years ago, and we've got it. I regard this issue as an extremely important issue.